Hello everybody. This is just going to be a review from yesterday's work. It's going to be exactly the same thing. We're just going to do it again one more day. So up here at the top, these are the equations, the standard form for sine and cosine, where this is amplitude. Amplitude is the absolute value because it's the distance on a graph from the midline. So for example, right here on this number 3, my midline happens to be the x-axis, so it's the distance to the maximum or the distance from the midline to the minimum. It's the absolute value. And then your b is representative of your period, well, it's part of your formula to find the period, and the period is a cycle or the circle, what it takes to find a whole circle or a cycle. So when your homework from today, you had equations where you had to find the amplitude and the period. So the amplitude for your A, because remember your A says if there's a vertical stretch or compression or if there's a reflection. So if I start out here looking at this one, this is my A right here, so the absolute value of -5, my A would be 5. So if I was looking at this graph would actually be a vertical stretch of 5 with a reflection. Okay, now to find my period, well, my B is 3. So there's your B. Your B is 3, but you have to substitute it into the formula, and your B has to be the absolute value. So the absolute value of 3 is 3. So I take the formula and I go 2 pi divided by 3, and on this one we can't simplify. So your period, or what it takes to make one full cycle or one circle, so your period here is 2/3 pi. So that is what it would take to make one full cycle. One full cycle. Now, that's just for number 1. I was just showing you on graph 3. Okay, so then if we do the next one, number 2, my A here is 1/3. So this would be a compression. So my amplitude, or the distance from the midline, not midpoint like I kept saying yesterday's video, is 1/3. And then to find my period, well, there's my B. My B is -2/3, and remember I want the absolute value. So to put it into the formula, I'm going to go 2 pi divided by the absolute value is 2/3. And by the way, it's keep, change, flip. So I'm going to go 2 pi instead of division times, and then I'm going to flip 3/2. And then look, my 2's can cancel out. So I've got 3 times pi. So my period for this one is 3 pi. Okay, so that was what we're going to do again, our worksheet that's going to be for tomorrow. I'm videotaping this on Wednesday night, so the worksheet will be for Thursday. We're going to repeat this practice. So now we're going to do the same thing with the graphs. So on the graphs, I'm looking for the amplitude. So my x-axis happens to be my midline. So how far up or how far down does it go? Oh, that looks like it goes too far down. Wow, I did not do a very good job. It's only supposed to be 3 up and 3 down. Sorry, that looks a little low. Should have put it right there. So the absolute value of A, or my distance, is 3. So there's my amplitude. So now, by the way, this is a cosine graph. I know it's a cosine graph because it doesn't go through the origin. So here, to find a complete circle, it's kind of a little hard to see. That's why if you look at your notes from yesterday, for cosine, if it's not a reflection, and I know it's not a reflection because it starts at the positive, that's when you use these words max, 0, min, 0, max. If you can say those 5 words, then I know I've completed a whole cycle. So my period starts at up here at 3 and ends at 3. So that means I've completed a full cycle. So my period is at pi over 2. So there's my period. But to write an equation, you need your A and you need your B. So just like today's homework that you had to do, now that I know my period, I'm going to take my formula, which is 2 pi over B, and I'm looking for my B, the absolute value of B, remember, and I'm going to set it to my period, because I know my period this time, pi over 2. And so when I crisscross multiply, I look here and I go, wait a minute, okay, when I crisscross multiply, well, we could cancel this out, but let's just go ahead and crisscross multiply. I get 2 pi times 2 is 4 pi. This would be pi times B. And then to solve for B, I don't know what I was thinking, so I was rambling. I'm going to divide by pi. And then what I get here is my pi's cancel out here, my pi's cancel out here, so your B equals 4. Now I can write the equation. I've got my A, I got my B, and remember this is a cosine graph, so right up here, cosine. So I'm going to write y equals, and then it's going to be 3 cosine 4x. Now, how do I know that that's not going to be a negative? It's not a reflection because it starts up at positive. Starts up at positive, so this one is not a reflection. So then if I go to number 4, now number 4 is a sine graph. How do I know it's a sine graph? Because it starts at the origin, it cuts through the origin. So if I look at my amplitude, well, this is the midline again. So my maximum height is at 1, oh, whoa, what a goober. I can't even count. My amplitude is not 3, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 on this one. That's why it's so low, it's 4. I can't count. So sorry, it doesn't change anything but this. My bad, peeps. This should be 4. I can't count my own numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going, I know I didn't make them the same. This one is 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so my amplitude on this one is 3. My period is, well, let's see, there's a half circle. Sine's much easier to tell. And there's a half circle. So my cycle goes all the way to 2 pi. And then I'm going to show you that little trick I had you write on the notes from yesterday if you wrote them down. For sine, it's usually 0 max, 0 min, 0. But this one goes down first. So this would be 0 min, 0 max, 0. That's a full cycle right here. That must be important that it goes down instead of up first. We'll talk about that in a minute. So now to find our B, remember the formula? It's 2 pi over B equals our period, which is 2 pi. And I'll go ahead and put it over 1. And let's crisscross multiply. So I get 2 pi equals 2 pi B. And then to get B by itself, we'll divide by 2 pi. Well, looky there. Everything cancels out. When this cancels out over here, that equals 1. So my B equals 1. So when you write your equation, remember it's an equation for sine because it goes to the origin. I would write y equals, my amplitude is 3 sine, and you don't put a 1, you just put x. But we need to talk about this 3. It's a reflection because it goes down first, not up. So this would actually be a -3 because it's a reflection. Okay, sorry about that. I can't count my own graph. There you go. Have a good evening.